Welcome, everyone, to the Retro Horror Academy. My name is Daniel Richardson, and today we're going to be looking at the world of horror back in 1954. The world of horror. The year of horror, 1954. And we got 5 movies we're going to rank from 1954, as well as induct 5 people into our Horror Hall of Fame. So without any further ado, let's just get into it. The first inductee into the class of 1954 in the Horror Hall of Fame is Arthur Lubin. Arthur Lubin was an American director and producer, and he directed several of the Abbott and Costello films. Probably best known for Phantom of the Opera. He directed that. Francis the Talking Mule for Disney, and he would go on to create Mr. Ed. He was considered one of the top directors for Universal. A couple of films that we did not cover that he did, as I mentioned before, he did the 40s, I forget what year exactly, but he did the 1940s version of Phantom of the Opera, as well as a film called Hold That Ghost, which oddly enough starred Abbott and Costello. Of course, we know him on this show as the director of Black Friday and The Spider-Woman Strikes Back. Big fan of Black Friday. I think, it's a great vehicle for Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff, and I thought, again, confident directing. He did good. And I like The Spider-Woman Strikes Back. I know it's not really a favorite in the world of horror, but personally, I enjoyed it. So it was enough to have me induct Mr. Lubin into the Horror Hall of Fame. At number 2, we have Peggy Moran, an American actress, but she retired early. Like, once she got married, she just got out of the game, which is kind of a shame. I feel like she had so much more potential in her. The only film that she did that we did not cover was a film called Horror Island. But we know her in this show as the lead in The Mummy's Hand and The Mummy's Tomb. I'm just a big fan of the Mummy series, as I mentioned previously. Thought she did great. She was a great lead actress. Could have been a great scream queen. I honestly thought she would go on to do more. I was kind of shocked to realize that, no, she hung it up after that. So, yeah, Peggy Moran. Number 3. Vincent Price, an American actor, definitely just known for horror and the villains he plays. Of course, House of Wax was his big breakthrough role in the world of horror. He was also a very avid art collector as well. There's a couple things we didn't cover with him. He did an episode of Lights Out and the movie Shock. However, on this show, we know him for The Invisible Man Returns, Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, and House of Wax. And he just now kind of broke through, and he has a long career ahead of him. But he's already pretty much hit all his requirements to be inducted into the Horror Hall of Fame right now. And so, with a resume like that, he's in. So, come aboard, Vincent Price. Number 4, Kurt Sidomak. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. German-American author, writer, and director. This guy also is just known exclusively for horror and sci-fi. And of course, I think his biggest picture he wrote was The Wolfman. Some films he did that we did not cover on this show: The Lady and the Monster, The Magnetic Monster, and Donovan's Brain. However, on this show, we know him for he was the writer of The Invisible Man Returns, Black Friday, The Ape, The Wolfman, Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, I Walked with a Zombie, Son of Dracula, The Climax, House of Frankenstein, The Beast with 5 Fingers, and he would write and direct Bride of the Gorilla. With a resume like that, that's even crazier. I mean, what he has literally, what he has provided for the horror community, not just as far as Universal horror monsters go, because he's got a nice little collection of that on his plate. Just horror in general. I mean, again, I Walk with a Zombie, great film. I'm a big fan of Son of Dracula and Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Wolfman, of course, classic. Invisible Man Returns, really good. In fact, I liked it better than the first one. And again, we've already covered Black Friday with Arthur Lubin, so yeah, no-brainer, Kurt Sidomak in the Horror Hall of Fame. And finally, we have Gene Yarbrough. Again, really hope I'm pronouncing that right. An American director. Some films that he did that we did not cover. He did Masterminds and The Brute Man. However, on this show, we know him for the director of The Devil Bat, King of the Zombies, House of Horrors, She Wolf of London, and The Creeper. And yeah, this is another guy who has contributed so much to the world of horror. And my personal favorite, one of my personal favorites, is King of the Zombies. I love that movie. So yeah, in fact, he's a horror guy and he's contributed that much. Hey, you're in here. So welcome to the class of 1954. Come on, step into the hallowed halls that is our Horror Hall of Fame and take your seat among the greats. So guys, let's get into it, shall we? We got 5 films to rank and talk about here. We're going to talk number 5 horror film in 1954. Excuse me, is La Bruja. So basically, this scientist, he's been working on this secret formula, and these thieves kind of break in, steal it. But during the break-in, they kill his daughter, and of course he's just pissed. So he uses his knowledge of chemistry and whatnot. He makes a formula that turns this really ugly woman into a beautiful woman, and he kind of uses her as a tool to infiltrate and get revenge on those who've done him wrong. This is a Mexican film. I really dug this movie. I thought it was really good. I like the fact that yes, this is a story we've kind of seen this layout done before. I mean, again, mad scientists who, or maybe not even mad starting off, they're just done wrong, and then they start getting revenge, but of course they start taking it too far, and whatever. We see it done a million times, but what I really dug about this one was I like that the main character, yes, he's very sympathetic, just in the, obviously, he's a good guy, just trying to help out, and then, this corporation who used to work with him, they just want to steal his formula, and of course the fact that his daughter dies in the process of all this, makes him very sympathetic. But what I liked about him too was, we see him early on, he's helping out like the criminals of the underworld. And there's one gang in particular, like a gang of like misfits or whatever. And it kind of reminds me like circus freaks almost, is what they remind me of. However, and that's where he, he's helping them out. And that's where he meets this woman. She's not an actual witch. That was just the name that, everyone gave her because she's just hideously, deformed or whatever. And so I like this element of they take... once the revenge ball is rolling, and this woman's helping bring down all these different conspirators who are part of this group, when the criminal underworld kind of gets involved as well, that's when I really dig it, because there's just a scene where they got one of the guys who he's basically going to be put on trial in this underworld court, if you will, but they got his 2 goons that actually did commit the murder and the break-in, and they end up pitting them against each other to kill each other, and it's so fucking brutal. The actress who plays the witch, I thought, she was gorgeous. She did a really good job. Whoever did the makeup on her, as the before, fantastic job. Like, she looks scary. Like, you always, you never want to be that person. Like, you got Rocky Dennis from The Mask. Yeah, that's pretty bad. And I'm not sure if I saw that in real life, I'd kind of wince a little bit, maybe. But this woman just flat out frightening when you look at her. Like, oh my god. The only thing I didn't really care for was, they do end it, I guess, kind of on a bittersweet note. You find out that the 2 head guys that were kind of running this whole thing, there was a third partner, and this guy was legitimately good. He had no knowledge that they broke in and stole this formula and whatever. He had no knowledge of that. He was against it when he thought they were going to try to do something underhanded to begin with. He was against it, and so anyways, the witch falls in love with him. Of course, we know as the audience this guy's innocent and he's a good guy, and she just loves him. That's just it. She just, she's getting wet for this guy. So it's not even like she's even using her mind. She's just like, oh, he's innocent. He had nothing to do with it. It's like, you don't know that. None of us do. So whenever he's kind of brought to trial, and again at this point, the main scientist, he gets killed during a scuffle with the witch because she's trying to protect this lead guy. So you get these like the leader of the gang put him on trial, and the whole time she's trying to convince him, and it's like he didn't do anything, blah blah. And anyway, I mean, I guess what convinces him eventually is the fact that she's trying to say like, hey, I was the witch, and they're like, oh no, you're too beautiful to be the witch. But when she gets killed because she steps in front of the blade or whatever to protect her guy, she dies, and then she turns back to her original form, and then they just let the guy go, and I'm just like, I just don't see them doing that, because again, it's like, yeah, maybe in their mind they're like, well, if she was telling the truth about that, maybe she'd tell the truth about him being innocent, but it's like, she didn't know. No one knows. And as much as you're glad to see this, guy who was ultimately innocent get away, same time it's like, no, realistically, this dude's getting killed. He's getting brutally murdered along with his associates. But I don't know. Like I said, it's a minor complaint, so no big deal. So yeah, I give this thing a thumbs up overall. IMDb has this rated at 6.5, and that seems fair to me. That seems about right. I'd probably go a little higher, but not by much. So yeah, La Bruja. So coming in at number 4, we have The Mad Magician. Basically, this is a magician who has his trick stolen by his employer, because he signed this contract basically that anything he does in this guy's workshop belongs to that guy. And so when they steal his tricks, he goes murderous. So this movie was filmed in 3D, and it stars Vincent Price and Ava Gabor. And yeah, this thing, when it came out, even now, it has, very mixed to negative reviews. Everyone just kept kind of like unfairly and negatively comparing it to House of Wax, which I do see those comparisons to a certain degree, but is what it is. However, this movie will have the distinction of being the very first film to be broadcast on TV in 3D. Now, obviously, or apparently, it didn't turn out that well, and people kind of complained that the 3D just didn't work that well at that time. But hey, still, it's the first. I really dug this movie as well. I do see, it had a lot of the same beats and similarities to House of Wax. But at the end of the day, it's Vincent Price, our, newly inducted Hall of Famer, who just kills it. It's his performance that makes you root for this guy. And again, it's like, yeah, does go too far. I mean, again, it does share a lot with not just House of Wax, but other movies where you have, like, again, like La Bruja. It's a sympathetic guy who has a set of skills, and when he's wrong, he gets his revenge, but of course he takes that revenge too far, and he starts going after others as well. And, it's the same kind of deal here. But his performance is so good that you're on his side for the most part. I mean, when he does go too far, then you're like, all right, but you should have done that. But up until that point, you're still on his side. I don't know. His performance makes it work. Ava Gabor, I didn't know her at all. I recognize the name. I know her and her sister. Didn't she have a sister named Jaja who was in a Nightmare on Elm Street 3? Anyways, she did really good in here. Again, you fucking despise her and you want to see her go down. Mary Murphy, who plays the kind of lead girl in this movie, I thought she did really well. So, I mean, again, it's a really good movie. I get... Sorry, my chair's squeaking and the microphone's picking it up. I get, the comparisons, but at the same time, it seems a bit unfair. But yeah, Mad Magician, thumbs up. Definitely dig it. So now we move on to... Oh, and I should mention this also has a 6.5 on IMDb as well. And like I said, that seems about right. So now we're moving on to our number 3 horror film of 1954. And the winner of the Bronze Skull Award, I'm talking about Creature from the Black Lagoon. So basically down in the Amazon, we discovered this prehistoric, sea monster, river monster, lagoon monster, whatever you call it, underwater monster. And, of course, we're trying to capture it and study it. This thing was also shot in 3D. 3D, though, it's winding down now. This may be the end of the 3D run. It is funny that in, the 3 big booms of 3D, we had it in the 50s and the 80s and then, like, late 2000s, early 2010s. And it seems like all 3 cases, there's a big explosion starting off like, wow, 3D, and then quickly and instantly just dies out. Like, it's such a short cycle. And I just want to, why is that exactly? I mean, I get it's a novelty, and I don't know. I just don't know. I don't get it. But it's just funny that we keep going back to it. Like, I'm waiting for, 2030 or 2040 when we do it again, and it's like, oh, it's a brand new thing. 3D, let's check it out. Anyway, sorry. So this movie was also filmed in 3D. This thing was followed by 2 sequels. And then it appeared, the creature appeared, or Gillman. I always call him the creature, but apparently he's called the Gillman, so I guess it can go either way. But the creature would appear on an episode of the Colgate Comedy Hour starring Abbott Costello. And even though it's not really canon, the episode would be kind of dubbed Abbott Costello Meet the Creature from the Black Lagoon. So, I guess for them it's canon on the Abbott Costello side, but not really considered part of the Universal storyline, I guess. There has been plans to make a remake of this dating back to the 80s. and they had some major names attached to it. Like at one point, John Landis was going to do it, John Carpenter was going to do it, Peter Jackson, and Guillermo del Toro. But for one reason or another, they always fall through. And those are just 4 examples. I mean, this thing has been pitched like 5 or 6 different times, maybe even more. And like I said, just each time falls through. In fact, right now, as we're talking, they're wanting to do another remake and a remake. They're going to give it another shot though, and James Wan is set to direct. So, I mean, if someone's going to do it, it'd be that guy. In fact, Guillermo del Toro, he loved it so much, and whenever it did fall through, he would eventually go on and do The Shape of Water, which is, I have yet to see it. I keep hearing great things, and the fact that it's, horror adjacent and it won like an Academy Award and everything, I should watch it, but I just hadn't had a chance to. But yeah, so there you have it. So there's kind of a little funny story. I love these kind of little stories you hear about, these movies. There were 2 stunt guys, who were inside the creature outfit. You had one that was doing the underwater scenes, and you had a guy who was doing them on the land scenes. And it turns out, like, the underwater suit was pretty heavy. And so whenever they tried to get him on the outside, it just wasn't working. So they had to get a lighter suit for the person to be outside the thing. And so I'm guessing this story is going to be the land creature. But anyway, this guy had an emergency, like, I have to go use the restroom. Like, I don't have to shit or piss or whatever, but he's like, I got to get to the bathroom. I'm going to guess shit, because I feel like if you're going to piss, just piss the suit. But poop, yeah, you can't do that. So anyways, dude takes off running towards the bathroom, and apparently he ran into a mother and daughter that was like coming out and like freaked him out. I don't know. Again, nothing major. Just a funny little anecdote there that I read and I thought it was pretty funny. Julie Adams actually suffered a slight little minor injury on set. So this suit, the head of it, you could barely see out of this thing. And so when the stuntman has to pick her up and carry her through that cave, apparently bumped her head and scraped it, leaving kind of a bloody little gash on her forehead there. So yeah, there's that. Apparently this movie was actually, the story of the Gill Man in the Amazon, this was actually based on a real Amazonian legend. Of course, I'm guessing that's not true because we haven't heard about any strange Gillmen down there, but I thought that was kind of interesting. Like, I wonder if there is still, like, in remote parts of the Amazon where people are just like, oh yeah, no, seriously, there's a creature in that Black Lagoon over there. So yeah, there's that. This apparently was the first film that Stephen King remembers watching, so that's a plus. And a little quirky side note here, this movie actually shares the same body count as Jaws, so there you have that. I really dug this movie. This is something I'll bring up later on, but I actually did like the action adventure aspect of this movie. I thought not really so much action, but more the adventure aspect. The pacing of this really reminded me of the movie Anaconda. Again, for better or for worse, I love the Anaconda. You may not, but it reminded me a lot of that. I felt like just the pacing, the structure, the way everything's kind of set up seemed very similar to me in that aspect. And so when they're trying to get out and they're trapped in the Amazon and the creature still, it's targeting them at this point. I loved all that. I love that, this creature has become an iconic part of the Universal monster pantheon, villains. And it's funny only because really this movie came after that cycle. In the 30s and 40s, you had 2 separate cycles, but they kind of went together. And so all those, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster, The Bride of Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Mummy, Wolfman, like they all are so iconic. And they all, when you think about all these, villains, these are the ones you think of, but the other one you think of is the creature, the Gill Man. And it's like, he was well past that cycle and never combined with the other ones. Like the other ones, for the most part, were always sort of interwoven together. Even the Invisible Man, winds up in Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. So it's like, he kind of has a slight connection with it. I guess the only one that really doesn't was the Mummy, but, we won't nitpick. But yeah, like they were all sort of interwoven together, and this one stands by itself, and yet the creature is still considered one of those classic movie Universal monsters. So speaks volumes for this movie as well. I'm just gonna come out and say I love Julie Adams. My God, she is just breathtakingly gorgeous. I mean, just classic beauty. I don't know. I was blown away when I saw her. Never saw this movie before, and when I saw her, dude, like she just had my attention. Like this was just goddamn. I don't know if she does more in horror after this. I hope she does. I want to see more of her. But yeah, I thought she did. She was just stunning in this film. Acting across the board is good. I love the character of the ship captain. I just love, like, he doesn't take shit from anybody. Because, you know, your two leads, Richard Carlson and Richard Denning, I forget which was which, but one of them, you know, he's more like the villain of the two. And he's not really a villain. He's more driven. I mean, I guess he starts becoming a bit of a villain. But like at one point, you know, the good one's like, hey, we need to get out of here. Start the boat. Let's get out of here. And when the captain goes for it, you know, the villainous one tries to get tough with him. But dude, the captain pulls a gun out on him. He's like, dude, this is my boat, and I'm taking directions from that guy. And he says, you're getting out of here, we're getting out. I just loved it, because he's just like, I don't know, wasn't taking shit from anybody. Fucking brilliant. Yeah, no, acting was good across the board. You know, underwater photography was really good. Again, for this time, creature looks good. So, yeah, not a lot I can really say about this movie that hasn't already been said. IMDb has this at a 6.9. It has an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it banked $1.3 million at the box office. So, yeah, Bronze Skull winner, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So now let's move on to our number 2 horror film from 1954. And this is the winner of the Silver Skull Award. I am talking about Godzilla. A dinosaur, prehistoric dinosaur, is awakened after a atomic blast. And so he just starts tearing through Tokyo. And while he's doing this, there's a scientist that knows that he has a weapon that's just as dangerous as Godzilla that he can use to kill Godzilla. But then morally, he starts to struggle, like, you know, should I release this weapon? You know, if this falls into the wrong hand, it could be devastating. So this is a Japanese film, and I read that, oddly enough, it was supposed to be a giant octopus was going to be the monster, but they scrapped that for whatever reason. Probably for the best, because I just think that'd be ridiculous. But, you know, whatever. This is the highest grossing Japanese movie of the year, and it would later get re-edited as Godzilla, King of the Monsters, for an American audience. And in fact, that's where I first saw it. I think a lot of people, that's kind of the first time anybody saw that movie, pretty much, was the American version of it. Anyways, this would become the longest running film franchise in cinema history. This is considered the best monster film of all time. And the film, you know, the themes, it symbolizes the Japanese fear of nuclear weapons. But not just necessarily nuclear weapons, radiation in general. So apparently there's also another story. Because obviously, you know, these people were only like, what, 10 years plus maybe removed from the bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki with the atomic bomb. So people were still alive. Like, you know, people remember these bombings, you know. But it wasn't just that. So apparently there was some kind of blasting going on between up in Russia, out in the water, whatever. And a Japanese fishing vessel came back, and it actually had a lot of fish that had radiation poisoning that they actually ended up serving to the public, and people got sick, and I believe one person even died. And so not only was it just like they just survived this, you know, massive nuclear bomb, but now they're having to deal with like radiation in their food, which, I mean, that's not even, I mean, clearly the surrounding areas of those two bomb sites were probably the same, but it's like, yeah, even if you weren't in the bombing, you know, target zone, you're still having to deal with, you know, radiation. And so this was very fresh in the Japanese, you know, culture and in the minds of the public and everything. So yeah, that was another thing that kind of went into influencing this movie. And of course, even the director said that, you know, they were inspired by The Beast of from 20,000 Fathoms, which came out the year before, and the fact that King Kong was recently just being re-released and was doing better numbers than it had previously. So yeah, there's definitely a big demand for giant monster movies, and they definitely cashed in on that. As I mentioned before, a lot of American audience didn't even know this version existed, because when it first came out, it maybe had a tiny run here in America, like in 1955, but then it quickly decided, like, you know what, we're going to, bring in Raymond Burr and do, the Americanized version of it. And so that was the version that not just America, but most countries saw. And it wasn't until, like, I don't know, 2004, I think, is when they said that they kind of re-released it on DVD and released it to the world, and then people saw the original version of it. Kind of an interesting story. The director, producers, and they were location scouting, and they're looking over Tokyo, and they're talking about we're gonna have a path of destruction from here to they're clearly talking about the movie, but a security guard overheard them and then got a hold of the cops, and the cops detained them for a little bit, and they had to be questioned and all kinds of stuff. Kind of interesting little funny story there, Initially, when this thing came out, this thing actually got bad reviews from Japan. They thought it was very exploitive, not just of the bombings, but this, fish radiation story and everything. And they just thought, even though it was making money, the critics did not like it. They, panned it. And it seemed like it wasn't until American reviews were coming out, of course, obviously of the American version, but that people were, the reviews for that was really good. Then it seemed like the Japanese critics were kind of turning like, oh, okay, well maybe, upon second viewing, this actually seems like it is good. So it's just kind of odd how, the American opinion kind of swayed their opinion. Thought that was kind of interesting. Moving on to this, this thing would actually go on to spawn 37 sequels, 3 remakes, and numerous spin-offs, including like animated shows and shit. That's just crazy. Like, I thought the MCU had a ridiculous catalog to try to slog through. I can't imagine trying to watch every Godzilla movie. I don't know. Maybe I'm up to. I may try someday. I don't know. Because I know, there ain't most of them. Aren't really horror. They go kind of campy and goofy as it goes on. So I know we probably won't be covering those, but. Either way, Steven Spielberg would mention that he took a lot of inspiration from this movie when he made Jurassic Park, which you can obviously see. George Lucas said that he was actually inspired by the miniature work in this film when he was making Star Wars. And apparently this is one of John Carpenter's favorite films as well. For me, this is a damn good movie. I think, when you look past... Which, in my opinion, I think the effects still look good. I mean, I know you can clearly tell it's a guy in a costume, and there are just certain scenes of, I think they even kind of do stop motion with its tail and stuff like that. You can tell, but at the same time, I feel like the emotion in this movie is what makes it so good. It's the darkness, it's the atmosphere that they create with this that gives it a certain realism that didn't translate, I think, with like King Kong, for example. I don't know. There's something about this movie that, because you watch the later ones, Mothra, Ghidra, and all those. There is a sense of kind of goofiness with some of them, or playfulness. Godzilla's an ally, not a But here it's like, no, this is a giant monster just trying to kill. Like, that's all it's doing, just destroying. And I don't know, the way I'm not usually too big on these monster movies, especially when they focus a lot on the human aspect of it. But for some reason, it works in this movie. And it's through our human protagonist that, I don't know, we can just feel the sense of realism and danger here. And it just, I don't know, like I said, there's the best word I can use for it. It just seems real. But, I don't know. I really dug it. Like I said, I've seen the American version more, obviously, but, I did finally get a chance to get caught up with the original Japanese version. And, I gotta say, I probably like the American version better, only because I'm used to it more. I've seen it more. But the Japanese version is still great. You get a chance, definitely check it out. This thing has a 7.5 on IMDb, a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it grossed $2.3 million at the box office. So there you have it, our number 2 horror film, Godzilla. So, there's only one film left from 1954. What is our number 1 horror film and winner of the Golden Skull Award? I'm talking about Them. That's right. Due to some atomic bomb testing down in New Mexico, ants become giant, and they start rampaging, eating people, taking over the world pretty much. So we got to stop that. This movie stars James Arness of the Thing from Another World fame. This is one of the first nuclear monster movies. Of course, we just mentioned Godzilla, and of course the Beast of a Thousand Fathoms prior to that. But this is the very first giant bug movie. Leonard Nimoy had a small role in this as well. Originally, this was meant to be shot in 3D and color. However, for whatever reason, Warner Bros. Just got scared when they started getting ready to put this thing into production, and I think they started filming certain things in 3D, but they never did do the transfer or whatever. But for whatever reason, they just pulled the plug on it, so we just got flat 2D, whatever. However, this thing would go on to be nominated for an Oscar for Best Special Effects, which it would lose. I forget what movie it lost to, but still, being nominated, that's something. It's kind of a nice little trick they use on here. Of course, this is an army of giant ants. There's, hundreds, if not thousands. Of course, you never see more than 3 giant ants on screen at any given time. because obviously they only had 3 they can use. This is a trick that James Cameron would use years later in Aliens. Again, thousands of aliens, on this planet, but you only see at least 5, I believe, at any given time on screen. So just brilliant. Unlike Godzilla, this thing was well received right out the gate. Critics, fans, even today, people love this movie. So yeah, this didn't have the same struggle that Godzilla had initially. Not that Godzilla had a struggle, I guess, because they were still making money. So fans loved it, but critics really didn't. But wasn't the case for this movie. So this is kind of an odd little story I kind of fished out whenever I was researching this movie. Apparently, so when you see when they doing like the crime scenes and you got the dead bodies. And they're trying to figure out what happened, and it's not robbery because here's the money that no one stole the money. Apparently, you couldn't show real money on screen, like TV or movies back in the day, and it wasn't like until '92 that they changed that law. And I don't know why. I didn't really look into that. I just read this part of it, and I was like, that's so fucking weird. Like, why would it matter? But apparently, it's against the law to show money on screen. So that money you're seeing in this movie, fake. The video game Fallout 3 has a side mission called Those. Not them, Those. Clearly taken from this movie. And in fact, that's the mission, is you have to go out to the desert and kill these giant fire ants. So there you have it. I forget what Scandinavian country, or Icelandic country, or whatever. But the title they use for this movie, it translates to The Spiders. Why they call it the Spiders, I don't know, but they do. Thought that was weird. I'm going to say Switzerland, but don't quote me on that one. Again, we're not professional here at the Retro Horror Academy. We don't do our research all that well. Not thorough. We need a legit crew in this thing. Anyways, and then finally, this is the first horror film that I know of anyways, that features the Wilhelm scream. It's used up to 4 times. And for you that don't know what the Wilhelm scream is, just look it up on YouTube. As soon as you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, I know that scream. I know that noise. For me personally, I absolutely love this movie. In fact, I'm going to make a bold statement here. I think, as of right now, of all the films that we've covered on the Retro Horror Academy, this is my favorite one. This is like my top film of all the films we've covered so far. I love Again, I'm not a big action-adventure guy when it comes to my horror films, but it works here. I love just that sense of, like, the army's going to have to go in, battle these things, and I don't know, it's really cool. I love the look of the film. It's just, I don't know, it has a darker vibe to it. It feels kind of film noir at times. Much like Godzilla, because it kind of has, like, not just necessarily film noir, it has almost like a documentary vibe to it, too. Like, the way it's shot just feels almost like you're there kind of thing, or you're viewing it like on TV, happening live or whatever. And like Godzilla, it comes off real for some reason. Now, there will be many giant bug movies that come out later that just won't. But for some reason, they were hitting on all cylinders with these first few. And this is just one of them that just, I don't know, it feels very real. Early on, there's the mystery of, who are them? What's going on? And of course, even though we know that we're renting the movie or watching it today, and I'm sure even back then you knew it was giant ants, but there's still, if you for some reason didn't know, came across this on TV and you watched it, I love the mystery early on, with the girl kind of, walking in a catatonic state, and they, trying to figure out, what happened to her, what happened to her parents, what's going on. I don't know. Everything works in this movie. Yeah, I don't know. Big fan, big thumbs up here. This thing has a 7.2 on IMDb, 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it garnered $2.2 million at the box office. So there you have it. Them is the #1 horror film of 1954 and the winner of the Golden Skull Award. So, to do a quick recap, our inducting class of 1954 into the Horror Hall of Fame included Arthur Lubin, Peggy Moran, Vincent Price, Kurt Sidomak, and Gene Yarbrough. Our 5 films that we reviewed or ranked at number 5 was La Bruja, number 4, The Mad Magician, at number 3, winner of the Bronze Skull Award, Creature from the Black Lagoon, at number 2, winner of the Silver Skull Award, Godzilla, and number 1, winner of the Golden Skull Award, Them. So guys, that was 1954, the year of horror. I want to thank everyone who tuned in and listened. And on behalf of the Retro Horror Academy, my name is Daniel Richardson, and you're dismissed.